Hello all, and thank you for joining us for our PAISOC conversations. This is our first of hopefully many to come. We'll be using this conversation to discuss audition strategies and the workshop that we will be having October 17th. So look out for that registration. It will be virtual, so please feel free to register. I'm Jani Springer. I am the president of PAISOC, and again, I thank you all for joining us. I'd also like to introduce Melissa. She's going to be in the background, so you won't see her, but she'll be here fielding the questions that you ask. I'd like to introduce the panelists. So representing the theater area, we have Alexis Ingram and Catia. Representing music, we have Wayne Dumaine, and representing dance, we have Jessica Pearson. If you have any questions during this live video, please put it in the comments section. I do ask that you either specify who or the discipline that you want the question answered for. Again, this is live, but if you watch the recorded version and you do have questions, still feel free to put those in the comments and we will try our best to field them later on. So let's go ahead and get started with the theater section. So I'll let Alexis introduce herself.
Awesome. So my name is Alexis Ingram, and I'm Zooming from Warren, Rhode Island. I'm an actor, playwright, director, teaching artist, producer, wear many hats in the world of theater. I also work in TV, film, commercial. Currently teaching at the University of Rhode Island for acting, and I work at 2 of the regional theaters here in the state. Oh my gosh, I'm already forgetting if I said that I went to Sarah Lawrence, but that's where I got my degree from, and that's basically it.
Hi, I'm Catia. I got my BFA in URI theater. I'm a local Rhode Island actor. I've been working for 2 to 3 years. I also write plays in my free time. I'm finishing one up now. And I kind of float around the theaters around here. So I like to think that I have a grasp on what happens in the Rhode Island scene.
Okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and start with our questions. So this is for Alexis. What are some of the difficulties that you have faced being a BIPOC theatrical artist?
Oh man, it's like where to start. Okay, so I would say the struggles have actually changed throughout the past like decade or so for me. I'm someone, I did my first commercial when I was 6 years old, was in my first play when I was 9. So I've really been able to see the trajectory of how the business has changed for Black folks and other people of color. So I would say that when I was at the age that a lot of the folks watching might be at when you're auditioning for your BFA programs or trying to decide whether to go BFA or BA, my biggest problem was the way that the conservatories worked. A lot of the times they would have their classes that were leaving, and essentially the incoming freshman class was like filling those spots in terms of type, gender, race, all the things that we're sort of trying to work towards not putting people into certain boxes now. And my mom's Black and my dad is white. So for me, early on, it was sort of this weird, like, we don't know what to do with you, like, not Black person, not white person, who are you, where are you, where do you come from, sort of thing. And now I think the industry has sort of seen that Black folks specifically come in all different shades. So that's good. And obviously, you know, being a light-skinned person, I have my own set of benefits in the industry. But I would say now it's just, you know, places don't produce stories that have people like me in them. So it's not even just about me as the actor, as much as it's about trying to get places to produce work that represent people that aren't just wealthy, Caucasian, and old.
So just to follow up on that, when you were saying that the programs are kind of filling specific spots that they had just graduated, have you seen a decrease in that habit?
I places are claiming that they're not doing that. But as I've been obviously I'm not auditioning for BFA programs anymore. I graduated in 2013, but I have gotten into a few MFA programs, and ultimately at this point in my life have decided not to go for a slew of reasons. But folks that I talk to that run these programs, or folks that I speak to who run these programs and are associated with regional theaters, say that they are not doing that. And I have seen some changes. I mean, I know a few years back, Juilliard's acting program actually had like predominantly Black folks in their class. Like there were only like 2 or 3 folks who were not Black. And that was awesome. I have seen more equity in like the Brown Trinity program over here in Rhode Island. But as a whole, I mean, when you kind of look at the, and this is MFA programs I'm talking about now, but as a whole, when you sort of look at the makeup of these classes, I am noticing a slower change. I know a few years ago, I actually think my friend was the first openly trans actor to get accepted to the Yale School of Drama. And yeah, so I'm seeing stuff, but you know, slow progress.
Well, you know, slow is better than none at all. So, Catia, do you have anything that you would like to add about the difficulties of being a person of color?
I feel like the majority of the difficulties I face is tokenism. So like you're grateful to be in the room, but you're the only person in the room that looks like you. And you that takes a toll on you because there are things you want to voice, but you feel like maybe I shouldn't voice that because you don't really feel like anybody's on your side. And I'm here to encourage you to always voice that, because if you don't say it, nobody else will. And you gotta grant yourself you gotta allow yourself to speak, even if you think you're not allowed to, because that's the only way you're gonna get to speak.
That's a very good point. Okay, so the next question is for you, Catia.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the challenges you have faced during the audition and application process for performance schools?
So again, like I feel like nowadays it's kind of like in the name of diversity, it's kind of like a numbers game of statistics. Like statistically, do we have this person and this ethnicity and this gender or sexuality, so that they're diverse. So I feel like the main problem for me is how to be more than just a statistic, stand out more than what you're putting on the paper, and have them actually see you for the talent you're presenting, and hoping that you're not just like, oh, well, you know what, we already saw another great Black girl, so what can you offer us that's just slightly more different than the last one? So I think the real struggle is setting yourself apart in talent enough that they see past the statistic that you represent.
What are some ways that you've specifically tried to set yourself apart? I think we might have lost Catia. So, Alexis, I'm gonna let you answer that question. Do you need me to repeat it?
Oh, she's back, I think.
Oh.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. The Wi-Fi just went.
It happens. So I asked you, Catia, what specifically do you use to set yourself apart?
Well, I try to use all facets of my identity when I try to think of like audition pieces. because I'm also bilingual because I'm Dominican. So I try to use everything that sets me apart while also choosing pieces that really, really matter to me. So like if I choose something that speaks to me, there's no way I'm not gonna make it authentic in the audition room because it speaks to me in a certain way that wouldn't speak to somebody else. So I try to choose pieces that represent who I am and I can represent well when in the room.
I think that's a really important point because it's really about like catering to yourself and instead of catering to those people, because that's how you get the realest performance. Thank you for that. Alexis, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just sort of to go off what Katia's last point that you commented on as well. I think at this time for young BIPOC actors, you really need to try to be reading as many new plays as you can. I mean, I'm always reading plays, like, and I mean plays that have been, yeah, Katia's like, I mean, I'm writing plays. I mean, I'm reading plays that were written last year, reading plays that are written in the past 5 years, because what's been happening in the playwriting world in terms of BIPOC playwrights is really exciting. You know, we're getting tons of folks who, you know, probably wouldn't get a play produced off Broadway or on Broadway 5 years ago, but people are just coming out with these awesome stories that really take a multifaceted look at so many different BIPOC identities that it's like, don't think that you need to walk into these auditions doing an Arthur Miller monologue. You know what I mean? You can find stuff that's written about people like you. And like you said, not catering towards what you think the people on the other end of the table want to see, because you will ultimately end up betraying yourself and not doing the kind of work that shows you off in the best light. One quick things I'll add about the difficulty of being BIPOC and having to audition for these programs: money. So make sure you're finding out at your school if people can cover audition or audition fees, because not only do you have to do like the Common App, but you got to pay an audition fee on top of that. And there are programs in different states that help people pay for those. And then getting there, you know, you're not just sending an application online, and these schools don't think about the fact that, like, okay, I'm a person of color. Maybe I'm also a person of color with a single parent. Maybe I'm a person of color that doesn't have a car, you know, and you got to get to New York, you got to get to Connecticut, you got to get to wherever. And unfortunately requires a lot of planning on your part. Because some schools will give you a fee waiver. So make sure you always ask for that fee waiver if you need it. Yeah, so just those logistical things were really giant hurdles for me.
I think this is a good segue into the next question. So what programs for Alexis or people helped you prepare for pursuing theater in educational institutions?
Yeah, so this is so different for folks depending on what state they live in, but if you have a regional equity theater in your town, in your state, in the next town over, use them as a resource in regards to classes, coaches, even just volunteering, like ushering and stuff, because the folks that are working at that theater can provide you not only with technique and coaching, but they often know where you can go to get the money to do these things. I was blessed my whole sort of high school career, late middle school, my relationship with Trinity Repertory Company. They were always, you know, hooking me up, letting me know, oh, this is here and that is there and this is free, and they want to, you know, give BIPOC people like the mic over here, stuff like that. I would also say too, like, it's like, oh, we have to do so much, but you really got to do this for yourself too. Like, I know the college fund back when I was in high school, which was actually a long time ago, but back then, college fund used to give waivers for like audition fees. So looking into that and seeing if they still do that is a big thing. And then obviously any sort of scholarships and grant stuff. I mean, my first year at Sarah Lawrence, I think I came in, aside from the whatever financial aid package they gave me, I had like 5 or 6 like grants from Rhode Island, scholarship things, because they want you there for the statistical reasons. Like, don't forget that these schools are a business. Okay, they're a business, and more than our white counterparts, you have to advocate for yourself in terms of making sure that you're financially set up for success, because these schools ain't cheap, as we know.
Thank you for that, Alexis. Catia, do you have anything to add? I think she's frozen again. Okay, so Alexis, do you mind fielding the next question?
Sure.
Okay, so it's, what advice would you give to BIPOC students about pursuing a career in theater? Kind of already answered that, but please elaborate.
Yeah, aside from really getting your ducks in a row in terms of seeing where you can get money and assistance in that regard, I would say the other piece of advice that I would give.
I'm gonna assume it's me right now. I'm so sorry. My Wi-Fi is really bad right now. I don't know what's happening. And
Okay, so Alexis, you finish, and then Catia will come back.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so going back to sort of what we talked about in the beginning, like making sure you're finding work that you feel reflects you in all facets of your identity, I think, is the first thing. And then being prepared and knowing that these institutions very much are all founded on a white supremacist patriarchal like foundation, and that one, it's not your job to educate the staff and the students there, and it's not your job to make them more equitable. You are paying for a degree, so you need to worry about yourself, is the first thing. And second, if you do go to one of these programs and maybe you're feeling like you're not getting as much as you would like out of it, just know that that is no reflection on you as an artist, and that's no reflection on how you may function in the professional world once you leave. I guess just sort of know that you can be walking into a really supportive and awesome community, but I think unfortunately you got to kind of have that little guard up, so that you're not, acting is enough emotional labor. So don't put extra emotional labor on yourself by feeling like you got to dismantle the whole system once you get there.
Thank you, Alexis. Okay, Catia, so I'll ask you the same question. What advice would you give to BIPOC students about pursuing a career in theater? Catia, we're having trouble hearing you.
Check to see if your Bluetooth is connected to your AirPods, Catia.
While Catia gets that sorted out, Alexis, what are your thoughts on summer programs or for students that are interested in theater?
I did one of them once. Unfortunately, I was not in a socioeconomic position where I could do that a lot, because these things don't pay. But if you are in a place where you can afford to not have to work while you're in high school and you can go to these programs, I'm a big advocate for it, in the sense that I think it mentally prepares you for what it's like to spend, 11, 12, 8 hours a day devoted just to your craft. Because that transition from, you know, being in high school where you have to do everything and then having it thrust upon you to be like in yoga, and then you're in dance, and then you're in voice and speech, and then you're in Shakespeare, and then you're in improv, and then you have rehearsal at night, blah, 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 blah. It's awesome, but it could be a little bit of a shell shock. So I think that the summer programs are a great way to prepare you for that sort of lifestyle change. Again, like, I mean, I'm over here talking about all the socioeconomic factors. Don't let the programs make you like, you know, broke or like super inconvenience you. Again, you just really have to advocate for yourself in terms of asking the programs themselves what sort of financial aid and scholarships they offer, and again, looking for outside resources. But yeah, if you can go, you know, I had a lot of friends that did the NYU Tisch summer programs before they actually went on to their BFAs. I think Emerson in Boston does a program too. So the ones affiliated with the schools, with colleges and universities are great. But again, I encourage you, and it's often cheaper if you look at regional theaters and see what they offer in the summer. They're more affordable, and then your money is going into the pockets of artists that work there and not necessarily going into an institution.
That's a very good point. Thank you, Alexis. Catia, can you hear us? Okay, I think we've lost Catia, but those are all the questions that we had. I don't know, Melissa, were there any questions from the live for the theater professionals?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. And thank you again, Catia and Alexis. Okay, so we'll be moving on to our music section. So this will be with Wayne Dumaine. Wayne, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Wayne Dumaine. I've been a freelance trumpeter in New York City for 34 years. I perform at the Metropolitan Opera. I play with the New York Phil, and I play numerous Broadway shows. And I'm the program director at NYU of the brass program. And I'm also a band director at the Elizabeth Morrow School here in Englewood, New Jersey. And it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for inviting me to be here.
And thank you for being here with us. And I will just remind you again, if you have any questions specific for music, please put them in the comments and either say music or Wayne. So let's move right ahead into our questions that we have prepared. Can you outline a few of the challenges you experienced as a young musician interested in studying music?
Some of the challenges, well, I have a very interesting story because I had a father who made us all play piano at a young age. And I'm one of 9 children. So I was, for some reason, we don't know to this day why he asked us to do that, but having started piano at age 6 and falling in love with classical music at that age, I totally took to it. I loved it, playing Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, Brahms. However, my dad was very abusive. So when I wanted to play trumpet, when I was in 8th grade, he was like, no, and yelled and screamed, I want you to play oboe, because he said we have to play a secondary instrument. I'm like, what? No, I heard Louis Armstrong and Dizzy Gillespie play on TV. I was like, I want to play trumpet. And so he gave me a trumpet and I started taking private lessons and I just took off. Having played piano, trumpet was easier. And it was something that just got me through school. It made me very popular. I used to play it, you know, in assemblies in our gym in middle school, high school. So at that time, there wasn't really a lot of challenges as far as, you know, racially things are concerned. I happened to go to a really great high school in St. Louis, Missouri called University City High School, very diverse. And it was always when you would leave the city limits, you know, there was strange things that would happen. But musically speaking, it really wasn't until I hit high school, and it wasn't really actually not non-musical. I auditioned for the St. Louis Symphony Youth Orchestra when I was in 11th grade. And that's what sort of got me to meet people outside of my zone. And I remember dating an Asian woman and never wondering why. I could go to their house or whatever, and then suddenly get a phone call from her saying, we can't date anymore. Somebody saw us together. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, I can't date you because you're, African American. I'm like, what? And I grew up in a town where everyone was just loving and, everyone got along. And I ran into that on a regular basis. It's sort of a non-musical thing. With music, I was always prepared. No matter what I was doing, if I was going to perform for someone or in a symphony orchestra or a solo competition, I always made sure that I was listening to 3-4 different recordings. I just happened to have a really good teacher to prepare me for that, to always be prepared so that when you perform, you're not nervous, you're not worried about anything, what anyone says about you. So most of my, challenges being a musician was choosing to be an orchestral musician. And there are not a lot of us in classical music. And it was just funny, and not until I met Wynton Marsalis in 1985, he was still young and up and coming, did he take me under his arms and give me the greatest, advice. I remember asking him, I want to be a successful musician. And he's like, well, go to New York, go to Juilliard, surround yourself with what New York has to offer. And that's exactly what I did. I practiced every day for 5 months. I could play that audition with my hands tied behind my back. And I got into Juilliard, and, and there was 2 African-American trumpeters, maybe a few violinists. But Juilliard at that time was very international. It was people from everywhere, from Greece, from South America, from Korea. It was like this whole melting pot of musicians that are sort of in the same boat. But once, as I said, just making sure that I'm 1000% prepared for everything, anything that I was assigned, I was going out, getting records, listening, headphones on at all times, getting the musical score, studying it, making sure that when it's my turn to play, I'm there and I'm not like going, what do I do? No, I was always like, let's go, boom. And as a result of that, people would hear me play. And, and then I have to tell you this one story. It was my second year at Juilliard, and there was this French horn player who approached me one day after hearing me play and said, hey, would you like to play on Broadway? And I was like, what's that? I didn't even really know what Broadway was or musicals. I hadn't really spent much time. I was all orchestral. He said, I'm going to give you your number to this guy named Wilmer Wise. And Wilmer is an African-American trumpet player. He was like 30 years older than me, who was playing Broadway shows. He played on the Leonard Bernstein West Side Story recordings. And when I met him, he told me these stories. He was like, I used to audition for orchestras. I would win them. And they said, we can't hire you because you're African-American. There's no way we could put you in this orchestra. We're talking about the 60s, early 70s. It was like I was getting a real education as to what happened before me. And it sort of set me up to be even more prepared and to put myself out there even more. So as far as challenges and people, doing this to me because of the color of my skin, it didn't really happen a lot, although I knew that could happen, but I was just always supremely prepared.
So it sounds like you had a couple of really good people and mentors in your corner.
Oh yeah, looking out for me. Oh my God, it was amazing. And then once I met Wilmer and started, playing on Broadway while I was at Juilliard, I'm like collecting a paycheck and playing great shows, Into the Woods, Crazy for You, Gershwin shows. I never allowed anything outside of what I had to do to get to me, because I always figured that would just take away from what my goal was. So it was very interesting. And Wynton, I could go over to Wynton's place any time of the day. He lived right around the corner from where I was living. Knock on the door, come in, play for him, play for me, hang out. He took me to Letterman shows when he was there. So it was always sort of like, just surrounded by great musicians, African-American musicians. It was awesome. And they would just give me great advice and set me up.
Now with you teaching at the college and high school level, do you see yourself filling that mentor position for your current students?
Absolutely. It's all about, I teach preparation. I teach just, listening to anything that's thrown in. I teach sight reading, to master sight reading. Anything that's put on your stand, you should be able to play it and make it sound like you've played it 100 times. I teach people to do that. So that helps them out in any situation that they're in. I also teach what we heard earlier with dance, summer music festivals. I learned that, a little bit late in the game, but I teach all my students, all my college students, to continue their studies by going to summer music festivals, continuing to surround yourself with people that are doing what you do. You create friends that you'll have for life, colleagues that you'll have for life, that will hire you, that you can hire later, which is what I'm doing now at NYU. I'm hiring these great musicians that I knew from these summer music festivals to come in and give talks as to how they got to where they needed to get to. African-American female musicians, male, everybody you could possibly imagine. And that's the best part, just being able to give them what made me successful and to keep them on the proper path.
I like that you said going to the summer music festivals is good for experience and for building that network of individuals that later on throughout your career, you're still going to be reaching out to them. So thank you for adding that. Mm-hmm. On to the next question. How and where do you see stereotypes reinforced in music?
Yeah, well, you know, it's always going to be there. It's changed though. The stereotypes when I like late 80s, early 90s, there was a huge push to get more African Americans in symphony orchestras. So there was these programs that I took full advantage of. And one of the main programs was called the Music Assistance Program. And it was set up by the New York Philharmonic, which is right next door to Juilliard. And I found it. I looked it up and found it. Unfortunately, there weren't computers back then. You just didn't go online and find it. You had to go out and search, look at bulletin boards, go to Manus, go to Manhattan School and look on bulletin boards to find things. But that's the one thing that really helped me out. I auditioned. You have to play for people in New York Philharmonic, and they would hire you to play with them, and they would cover whatever you had to pay out of your pocket beyond your tuition at Juilliard. So, you know, I found scholarships and things, and they covered what I couldn't cover. And it was like the biggest thing ever. And because I was African-American, and I found it, and I'm like, let's do it, you know. And there were several things. I mean, and suddenly I'm playing at the Philharmonic. So, but back then, symphony orchestras, if you made the finals for something, they weren't behind a screen. So there was definite discrimination. There was 2 auditions I took for the New York Philharmonic in the early 90s. The first one, I started from preliminaries, semifinals, I made the finals. And there was 3 of us in the finals. And there we are after we played in a room, and I played really well. I was like, I'm gonna be the 2nd trumpet player of the New York Phil. I was ready to go. And there I am in the room with 2 other trumpeters and Zubin Mehta. And he looks each individually at us, says one thing to him, looks at me and says, you're too young. You don't have enough experience to play at the New York Philharmonic. And I'm looking at him like, and I said to him, like point blank, looking him in his eye, if you give me this job, I will gain the experience that I need to be the greatest trumpet player in the New York Philharmonic. That's what I said to him. And he didn't go for it. So sent home. I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, and I went to like 25, 50 concerts a year at the New York Philharmonic. The next time I auditioned for the Philharmonic, and this is very interesting, was part of the music assistance program. They invited 15 African-American trumpet players to audition for an opening in New York Philharmonic. It felt weird to be offered this because of the color of my skin, but as I said, at that time, they were doing a major push for people to get the New York Philharmonic job. And we all knew they weren't going to pick any of us. We knew that. But there we were on the stage playing, auditioning, and I met some really great friends that I still have today from that audition. But you know, the stereotypes, it's a lot different nowadays. People are more aware of it, and symphony orchestras now are doing all screens, all behind the screen, which is fair to all. So, and if you look at the Met Opera, there's more African-American musicians. If you look at most symphony orchestras, there's more of us, more women, definitely more women in general in symphony orchestras, because they're all behind a screen. There's no discrimination or looking at someone's like, how would that fit in with, you know? So it's changed in a way that there's less discrimination in that manner for auditioning. And I'm actually at the age of 55, I'm going to be auditioning for the Met Opera. There's an opening, and it'll be behind a screen. And I've been playing there for 27 years, 28 years as an associate musician. And we'll see what happens, you know, but it's changed in that way, that there's more screens. So we'll see what happens.
So with how you really fell in love with classical music, how do you share that love and get your younger students interested in classical?
Oh, well, just, lots of listening. And what's amazing is YouTube. I can find one symphony orchestra and find 15 different performances by different conductors, different orchestras from around the world. Right now at NYU, I forgot to mention this, I'm also a conductor. So I'm conducting all the NYU orchestras, although because of the pandemic, they're really small. But every concert that I conduct at NYU has an African-American composer on it. And this semester we have Jesse Montgomery, we have Jeffrey Mumford, and I'm just throwing these amazing works onto these concerts so that the students can be exposed to the fact that there are, believe it or not, African-American classical composers. They're there. And NYU hasn't really, programmed these works and composers. And there's a push now for everyone at NYU to be more inclusive, to more involved in what's going on in the African-American culture. So that's been a special treat. And we will continue, we'll continue. There's such a list of amazing composers, Adolphus Hailstork, it's endless. And we'll continue to do that. I think that answers your question. I'm not sure.
It did.
Okay.
I'm happy you guys are taking that step and introducing more people to Black composers. Thank you for that. Moving on to the next question. What has helped you get to where you are, and what advice would you have for others who want to set off in a similar direction?
My advice, and I preach a lot of things, but the one thing I preach is preparation for the next day. When you go to bed, I can show you this little notebook that I have here, and I have a few of these, but this is one of them. I just constantly have notes and just, making sure I know everything that's going on in my life and what I need to do. And if I don't look at this notebook, I'm getting behind. And there's this thing where I have 3 days of emails piling up. I make a list before I go to bed. And when the alarm rings, you get up, you pop out of bed. There is no snoozing. There is no, snooze every 8 minutes for the next. No, you get up and you do what you have on that sheet of paper. And, by the time 11 a.m. rolls around, I feel great about my day, that I've already, taken care of what I was supposed to take care of, as opposed to, and before I realized I had to, do that, I was always behind. I was always like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then it piles up, and then everything gets like stressful, and it's not fun. When all you have to do is just make a list, who you're going to email, who you're going to call, what do you need to do, and now I have a family, so it makes things a little tougher, because I do have a 9 and a 4-year-old, and a lot of times I get up at 4 a.m. to get stuff done from 4 to 7 uninterrupted. But I preach that to my students: make list, understand what you need to do. Don't put it off, do it. If you have to practice triple tonguing, if you have to practice slurs, if you have to practice this, write it down, come up with ways to practice it so that you're constantly improving. It's a constant improvement. And at 55, I'm still doing that. There's still things I need to work on. And I make sure that every day I'm doing that. Make it, just little steps to get better, little steps to get better. And that's what I preach to my students. And as far as being discriminated, I know who's discriminating. I know who's out there. No one ever comes in my face and says things like that, but it's all about me. I'm the only competition I have is with myself. I'm not worried about who that other guy is and if that person doesn't like me. I've had instances where years ago, like I'm at a summer festival in Charleston, South Carolina, and we're reading brass quintets in a mall. And this dude looks at me, we're just pulling out music, reading it. And this guy looks at me, he's like, "Oh, you can't read that." And I'm looking at him like, and I went off, and it pissed me off. I was like angry. And I was like, "You said that because I'm Black. You don't think Black people can play?" And I went off, and I was like, I can't do that. I can't do that anymore, because I was angry for like months after that, and it affected how I was as a person. I was like always angry, but I was like, I can't do that. I just have to be prepared and just do the best I can, and know that what I'm preparing and what's coming out of my instrument and coming out of my brain and mind is the best I can do. And in the long run, it's playing that gets you to where you get to. It's how you present yourself. And people will pick you. People will always want to have you. And I treat everyone with equal respect and love. I don't judge, and I don't hold grudges. And because of that, I get respect from people that are, I can't say the word, not so nice people. And even people that I know are blatant racist. I'm just like, hey, what's up? I get in their face and like, how you doing? You know, and have conversations with them. And, you know, not, you know, just because that's what I do. You know, I want to get along with everybody. And love, that's the best way, you know, as opposed to the angry and screaming and shouting. I completely understand it and I respect it. But for me, it takes away from what my goal is in life, and that is just to show equal love and respect to everyone.
So this is the last question we have prepared. I know you probably have a long list of resources that individuals that want to dive a little deeper into music and classical music and pursuing that as a career. But what are the best ones that you could think of right now?
The best what? Can you rephrase that? The best
resources for individuals to just learn more.
That's really cool. I am, and this might sound silly, I'm a big advocate of Tony Robbins. I don't know if you know who Tony Robbins is, but he's a self-help guru. And as I mentioned, I grew up with an abusive father. And as a result, you know, it affected me as a human being. I was doing some of the things he was doing. I found myself like, you know, lying and make myself look better and just really horrible things. And it caught up to me when I got married. My wife was like, man, you have issues. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And so, you know, therapy. And then I somehow just came across this Tony Robbins thing on cable once. And I was like, okay, I'll get this. And oh my God, he's the one who's like the list thing and staying on top of what you need to do and constant and never-ending improvement and, you know, just making lists and staying on top of it. And so there's nothing wrong with finding people that want to uplift you and make sure that you are understanding who you are, what you're about, and it adds to your success if you're not letting all the distractions bother you, TV ads telling you what you need to do. It's all about understanding who you are and being able to make decisions and choices on your own based on what you have experienced, not allowing other people to make decisions for you, not trying to fit in. Fitting in would make me really, you know, the early years when I was hanging out with Winton, I would, you know, I grew up reading the dictionary, speaking clear English. I don't know where that came from, but that was me. But I would hang out with Winton and I'd be like, yeah, man, how you doing? What's up? I would try to talk like that. And I just didn't sound comfortable doing it. And when I would leave and go home, I would be beating myself up. Why are you, that's not who you are, you know, be who you are, you know, and that's you, and be comfortable with it. You know, people are always like, you don't sound Black. You know, if I have a phone conversation and meet them, you're like, oh, I thought you were, you know, white. And that used to bother me, but I'm like, no, I'm who I am. I preach to my students, be who you are. If you know, as long as you're not hurting somebody or offending anyone, you're good to go, you know, and don't allow people to tell you who you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to think. And, you know, it's just be who you are. And it's made me happier. That's the goal for me, to be happy. So that's the advice that I give. Just be you and understand who you are and don't allow other people to tell you what you're supposed to do and who you are.
I 100% agree with that. When I worked at a high school, I used to tell my student athletes that you don't have to live up to a stereotype, like just be yourself.
Correct.
And it's really important that we do have people in the world that are enforcing that, because there's so much in the media that's telling these kids that
it's really terrible.
Yeah,
I don't watch TV anymore. I got so tired of these TV commercials. I do it, so you should too. And I'm like, no. I used to get angry. It's like, no, I'm not going to go buy Wrangler jeans because Brett Favre is telling me I'm supposed to, or, you know, it was hilarious. It's like, okay, so very interesting.
Thank you, Wayne, for answering those questions.
You are welcome. This has been so much fun.
Do we have any questions for music or for Wayne? Okay. And good luck at your Met Opera audition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to dance. Jessica Pearson, I will let you introduce yourself.
So my name is Jessica Pearson, and I'm originally from Connecticut, and I started studying dance at a studio called Dee Dee's Dance Center, which was a predominantly African-American dance studio in New Haven, Connecticut. And then I went to undergrad at Towson University in Towson, Maryland, and studied dance. Was able to audition for several companies in my senior year and ended up signing a contract with Cleo Parker Robinson Dance Ensemble in Denver, Colorado. Again, another predominantly African-American dance company. After being there for 5 years, I moved to Bermuda and taught at a very large dance studio on the island for 2 years. Came back to Colorado and studied and got my master's at the University of Colorado Boulder. Then went to the University of Utah for a 2-year post-MFA fellowship, and now I'm at Rhode Island College, and I'm a tenured associate professor of dance there.
That is quite the resume, Jessica. Okay, so let's just move on to the questions. So what can a student expect at a college dance audition?
Well, one is that no audition is the same from school to school. So I would suggest going on their website and seeing what they lay out in an audition. Will you most likely find that there will be a ballet portion and maybe a modern dance portion, and also a solo is normally customary. Sometimes they interview in small groups or one-on-one. Sometimes they do several different dance forms. But again, it's always different. Sometimes they tell you what to wear. They want a specific leotard color, a specific tights color, or maybe leggings of some kind, or that it's open. And so it's really good to do your due diligence. If you're not sure, if the website is unclear, contacting the audition coordinator to get clear, I would also recommend doing as well.
So when you're auditioning for a program, if you have a specific type of dance that you want to focus on, do you usually do a broad audition in dance styles, or is it catered to that style?
Well, I think you need to research the schools to be able to see what the school specializes in. There are some schools that are modern dance focused. There are some schools that are commercial dance focused. That's a new big trend going on right now. There might be some that are modern dance or broad. Like the University of Colorado Boulder was it was open. There was a strong West African program, very strong in modern and contemporary dance. They had ballet. They brought in guest artists that did a variety. There was also grad students that taught as well, and they brought a variety of techniques to the table as well. So I guess it's a really great thing that, especially in the United States, that there are such diverse programs, but you got to know what you're getting yourself into before you accept and start going there, because it might not be what you're looking for.
Do the auditions usually reflect on the institution? So like when you go through that process, you can just be like, this isn't really where I think I'll fit. Okay.
I mean, you'll see that within the technique that they are giving in the audition class, and then you'll get a feel for the teachers and their style of teaching as well. I find, and I found this even auditioning in undergrad, that you can get a sense if you're gonna feel at home there in the audition process. You'll see the way that they act towards you, and if you bring a parent or guardian with you when you sign in, there's normally either professors signing people in or current students, and current students might be working the audition, playing music or recording it. And if they're friendly to you or not, or if they're shady, like you will see, normally auditions are like a 2 to 4 hour process. So you're in someone's home for a while, and you'll see their true colors during that time.
Thank you for that. What advice would you give to a student about practicing and preparing for an audition?
I would say that, especially if there is a solo component, that either you can have someone choreograph for you or you choreograph for yourself, that you're either practicing it kinesthetically in your body. Maybe you take dance class like twice a week. At the end of that dance class, you ask your instructor if you can show them your solo, or have everyone else in the class watch the solo, so you're used to people watching you as you're performing it away from the mirror. Also, I am a big advocate of visualizing yourself doing it in odd places, and just getting it continuously in your body so that it's second nature to be able to perform it. To continue to take classes. If you are at a current dance studio, I wouldn't say lessen your load when you are in that final year before you're auditioning for college programs, to continue to do that, and also to cross-train. If that's taking Pilates or yoga or different techniques that you haven't done in the past, that you should bring that into, I call it the dance toolbox, bring it into your toolbox.
That's a really good point with the cross training and just making sure that you're physically ready for that audition and collegiate level of dance. One question from that is are there benefits to choreographing your own audition piece versus having someone else choreograph?
You might be more comfortable in your own movement style, choreographing for yourself. And then sometimes we might ask someone if they choreograph themselves. And if it's done well, if it's crafted well, it's like, oh, and they're a good choreographer too. Or maybe they're stronger in choreographing than they are in performing. And that would still be a good reason to accept them, because that skill set is just as valuable as being a wonderful technician. So knowing that information, and if they don't ask, maybe you in the room, you're able to throw that out there that I choreographed this myself.
For your personal auditions, do you choreograph your own pieces?
I did. I remember, oh man, yeah. I can see this picture of myself in this blue velvet dress thing that I wore when I performed the piece, but not when I was auditioning. But I did this, it was kind of jazzy, I remember. I don't remember if it was any good or not, but I did. And then in grad school, of course, they want to see you do your own stuff, you choreograph your own, and for graduate studies. So yes, I did.
Well, that's good to hear. That's why you're working at a college now. And so the last question that we have for you is what specifics, I know you touched on it earlier, but what do you think would be the best attire for an audition?
So I would, okay, if they don't specify, you want folks to be able to see your body. So you don't want to be too like baggy sweats, baggy shirt type of deal. But you also want to be comfortable in what you're wearing. It's the worst to hate your dance outfit. It is the worst thing ever. It's like a bad pair of jeans. So if you have like a favorite leotard or a favorite like tight t-shirt, or if you like joggers and it's like your favorite pair, I would avoid holes and like bleach stains and all those. Sometimes that make you really like that. I would avoid that. I remember someone, from Dance Theater Harlem saying you always want to look like you want a job, like you're ready to be a professional, and to always enter the room like that, whether that be an audition or a day in the studio or a company class. Like you always want to look polished. And there are some places that, you know, you could do less of that in the dance world. They're okay with the sweats, and because it's more contemporary and a little bit breaking away from that tradition, that tradition of concert dance. But knowing your audience, but be able to see the body clean, no rips, no tears, and you like it. You feel great in it. So you're not like picking at it the whole time.
I think that's a huge overarching theme that we've had with all of our panelists today. It's really just about being yourself. And that's the beauty of the performing arts, is that you can really express yourself in the art that you're portraying, and you don't necessarily have to do your actions to satisfy someone else. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Jessica?
Can you give me a theme? Can you throw me a theme?
What's probably the biggest advice you could give to a BIPOC student that wants to pursue dance?
I think one of the reasons why I wanted to do this kind of forum for audition strategies for collegiate programs is that sometimes students might not know what to do. They might not have instructors who have been through this process for auditioning for college programs, and so might not have the advice to give them. But I would say, regardless, like if you walk into the room and you don't have, the best Lululemon outfit on, or you don't have ballet shoes and you're dancing in socks, that you sell what you got. Because at the end of the day, it is about you being a mover in the space, and finding your opportunity to be in that program. So don't let things that you might not have hinder you from performing at your best. And maybe you don't get into the school that you want to, but there's a school that maybe was your backup, or you didn't really care about, but they really want you. I would say, if you recognize that they really wanted you for some really good reasons to make you a better dancer, performer, choreographer, artist, then there's your blessing. And take full advantage of that, and then go to that other school for grad program and make them jealous that they didn't have you for undergrad.
Very insightful, Jessica. Thank you. I'd like to invite all the panelists to turn their cameras back on. Thank you. Melissa, do we have any additional questions? Okay, so I just want to thank you all for participating in this conversation. Hopefully there will be more to come. And I'd like to remind everyone that is watching or will be watching to please register for our audition workshops, which will be October 17th. Okay, thank you all so much for your time.
Our pleasure. Thank you.